Are you ready to step into the best possible future awaiting you? One present and thousands of different futures. Welcome to the Soul Mechanic Show with Ann Kulyk, owner of The Perfect Rose. Rose's spiritual journey has transformed her life, and she's here to help you create that same transformation. Her mission is to guide you in building a strong foundation, connecting with your unique gifts, embracing your authentic self, and discovering the magic within to create the life you truly desire. So please, welcome the host of the Soul Mechanic Show, Ann Kulyk.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Ann Kulyk, and I'd like to welcome you to the Soul Mechanic Show, live streaming here on Bold Brave TV. We're live on various platforms, and I forgot the rest, so we're just going to say that. I'm going to laugh at myself. I'd like you to meet one of my friends. So this is a friend of mine that I dreamt of before I took a crystal healing course, and it's helped me so much on my journey. And it's going to be visiting with me from today. So anyway, I wanted to do a little bit of a recap from our time last week, because I feel like there were a couple of things that were unfinished, and I wanted to make sure that whatever we covered today kind of flowed with that. But our topic today is actually understanding and embracing power, your power. And I'm not necessarily sure if everyone knows what the word power really means for us as an individual. I know myself personally, I do believe that a big piece that I've come to learn and experience in this lifetime is about power. But I feel in my heart, I've experienced a lot of people who've misused their power. And I think the main reason that I probably agreed to have a lot of those experiences, and I believe in my heart, a lot of us that are here to assist humanity during this period of time have intentionally subjected ourselves to a lot of experiences where power was misused. And I feel in my heart the main reason for that is because of the fact that, see, after you experience power being misused, you don't necessarily want to do that to anyone else. I mean, maybe the odd time when people are in pain or something like that, they might try to inflict that on someone else. But um, um, I just feel in my heart, because of the fact that I've witnessed people who have been in powerful positions and they've misused it, I really do believe that it helped me to become much more compassionate person. I think I naturally was anyhow, but I think it really did help me to do that. So we're going to put that aside for a second, because I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I didn't do in the last show. And I think that'll kind of tie into where we're going, because the last show was a bit about dogma and just really opening your mind to wherever you're at on your journey, that try out of love for yourself, because that was the biggest piece. Whatever I really said at the end in my heart was the biggest piece that I had wanted to impart on others, was the fact that just really to just be gentle with yourself, and just realize as you keep growing, some of your some of those beliefs that serve you up to a certain point might not necessarily serve you anymore. I did have a couple books that I had wanted to make reference to that I didn't end up talking about last week. And there is a story that's coming up right now that might be really helpful. I did mention, I think I do often mention about Jehovah Witnesses, and I'm not doing that to be judgmental. I think it's just there's a lot of people out there that have a tendency to have experienced them. They're pretty, pretty focused. They'll be knocking on your door. I always thank them for trying to save me from hell. So, I say, I really appreciate you trying to save me from hell, but I think I'm okay. Anyway, so anyway, long story short is that years ago, when I was working at the casino, I had gone to this toning table place. It was really cool. And the lady that owned the place, she was actually, in fact, I think they were both older than me at the time. So it was the mother had owned the place, And that day, the daughter was working, and the mother believed in a lot of things that at that point in my journey, I really strongly believed in. She believed in Louise Hay and affirmations and all these different things. And I was using some of Louise Hay's subliminal tapes, to help to move into my subconscious mind. So I'm on the 20 table, and it was interesting. The daughter really felt compelled to speak to me, and I had said to her, I said, "Wow, it must have been so great, to have a mother that believed in this stuff." And she said, "Well, not really." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Well," she said, "I really didn't know what was right or wrong." She said, "It's almost like she had too much freedom." See, now I was raised with the Roman Catholic religion. Now we've got this other person that's raised with like, a little bit more open-mindedness, affirmations, just believing in, higher power and all that stuff. And for whatever reason, the daughter didn't necessarily feel that that was helpful for her. So she actually intentionally chose to become a Jehovah's Witness because of the fact she likes that someone had told her what was right and what was wrong. And I said, "Well," I said, "can I ask you something?" I said, "Did it serve you? And does it serve you?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, then that's the most important thing." And I said to her, I said, "What I've come to know is this." And I said, "The simplest thing that I'm going to tell you right now is what I've come to know is it's going to serve you until it doesn't serve you anymore." So on my journey, and this is what I'm encouraging anyone to do, is if your beliefs or whatever wherever you're at, if it's working for you, it's going to keep working for you until it doesn't work for you anymore. Excuse me, until you get to a point where something's actually happening in your reality, and that way of thinking or that belief system or that school of thought doesn't have the answer to that question. And as soon as it doesn't is when you kind of venture off and start looking for answers in other ways. So that's the simplest thing. Excuse me, I got a tickle. That's the simplest thing I'm going to say to you out of love for yourself. So anyway, there are a couple of books that I had wanted to share that really assisted me on my journey. Or I think I've mentioned before that I did come in this life as a Virgo, and I love my books, and I'm very careful with my books. I take very good care of my books. But it's pretty old now, is the only book I ever dog-eared. I don't know if anyone knows what dog-eared means, but that's when you bend the page down. So anyway, I have some spots where, anyways, years ago was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb. She ended up in the 80s. They made fun of her and stuff like that. But I ended up reading this, and she disseminated a tremendous amount of information. But now a good portion of everything that she disseminated out then, most people are coming to. Excuse me, I got a tickle. My throat chakra must be doing something. Excuse me. So anyway, the reason why I had wanted to mention this was in Out on a Limb, actually on YouTube. Don't tell. But YouTube, there's the movie. You can actually get the movie there. It's a 2-part movie. It's pretty cool. She refers to when reincarnation was struck from the Bible, actually in 553 AD at I think it was. I'm not used to saying it out loud though. It was at the Catholic Church in Constantinople. I know I'm not saying that correctly, but so they basically intentionally struck reincarnation from the Bible. So that was one of the things that. So just to make it easier to control everybody. See, the people in power want to keep their power. So they didn't want anyone else to know that they could come back at another time and maybe be the one in the powerful position. But one of my favorite parts actually from this is the value of the human soul. It basically implies that one soul choosing to grow can alter the whole universe. So I just want you to really think about that. one soul choosing to grow impacts everything in this whole entire universe. That's how important each one of us is. Actually, I had got guided, so I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to have your higher self supervise anything that we're saying here today, and I'm going to ask that your guides and angels surround you, if it's for your highest good, of course. And I'm going to ask if there's anything that I say that is beneficial for you or true, that you're going to get goosebumps or an energy hug, like almost like a feeling of knowingness. I'd like to have that supervised when I work with my clients. I have it, so let's do it for the show. What do we have to lose? Now, when we're gonna have to take a break right now. Sorry, I was so busy looking at different things. For those who are listening to audio, but for those who are video, please stay here. Okay, thank you. So this is the part I still have to adjust. Last week was a little bit different. Now, I'm going to clear up some stuff from one of the teachers I studied years ago, because truthfully, to be honest with you, in my heart, I really loved the teachings. I still practice the teachings. In my heart, I actually believe in an alter reality. Like, she's actually still doing the same work that we did when I studied with her. I still use her decks. I know that she ended up changing directions, and her name is Doreen Virtue. I did study with her in 2002 and 2003, and part of her mission, it has been a big, it was a big piece of mine, because there was something about it that I really genuinely loved. I love the fact that she empowered a lot of people that maybe could have actually been by our society, considered people having some forms of mental illness, which even though she changed directions, the universe, out of love for, I think, me and wherever I was at on my journey, because she wasn't my only teacher by any means. But I loved a few of her decks of cards. In fact, this is one of my favorite decks of cards, is the Healing with the Fairies. It's the first deck I ever purchased. Look how much I loved it. I used to carry it with me when I went to work and share it with people. And so, Healing with the Fairies and healing with the Angels, I find that they're just absolutely beautiful, supportive, and empowering. But anyway, she ended up changing directions. She became religious and started to poo-poo all over some of the things that she had disseminated out. But in the meantime, I had my own beliefs anyway. I'd gotten pretty firm in wherever I was at in my journey. But by the grace of, I think my own guidance and my own higher power, the universe sent in a gentleman by the name of Garnet Schulhauser, and his mission ended up being quite aligned with whatever I'd prayed for. Originally, it was a lot to do with my relationship with the animals, but it ended up a good portion of what he disseminated out was very much aligned with some of the things that I had already come to know. And the reason why I had brought this book, it's the first of his series. He was actually a corporate lawyer whose guide manifested into form as a homeless man, which in my journey had some very interesting stories associated with that, because of the fact that my first boss, there's a story about homeless man. I'll probably share it some other time, but it was like a signpost to me. Like, as soon as this gentleman came into my reality, there was just something very profound. I'm really hoping that Garnet's going to come on my show as a guest. But the main reason why I'm referring to this is he talks a lot about, in the first one, about religion, where his guide does talk to him about the fact that there isn't necessarily a hell. I had come across that information through other spiritual information many years before that. So for me, as I said in yesterday's show, I'm a nonconformist. So I really like to get my information from various sources, especially when they're all end up, a lot of those pieces end up being similar or true. That makes me feel much better. So anyway, he does talk about religion in this, and how, certain things were done to control the masses, and his guide disseminates a lot of that information there. So I thought the beauty in all of it was, again, it was more aligned with where my soul was taking me to, because in this lifetime, as I say, I have seen many other lifetimes that I have lived, and I've been a Buddhist and I've been other things, because I did have some friends who were trying to convince me to do that. And I'm like, I already did that. I say the more the merrier. Let's hang around with a whole bunch of different ascended masters. Why do I need to just hang around with one? So that's my story. So now we're going to talk about power. So I just want you to think about what power means to you. Like, I know for a fact when my Reiki master mentioned to me about power, truthfully, I didn't know what it was at that time. I was in my late 20s. I had kind of come out of a certain type of an, lifestyle. I had had an experience a couple of years prior to that for a not very healthy relationship. So I hadn't, I kind of was a little bit more disconnected, even though I believed in all this spiritual stuff, a good portion of my journey. I feel like, and I was so blessed, at that time to have been led to some books or people that might have been doing readings themselves or whatever. So I always was interested in something, but I guess all I'm trying to say is that I really didn't understand when she implied. So in my second degree Reiki with her, she mentioned something, and she said about the word power. She said, this is when you really come into your power. And I truthfully didn't understand what that even meant. Power. What was power to me? I didn't really understand that. So anyway, from what I understood, and this is the beauty about when you get to a certain point of the journey where you realize you are a spiritual being having a human experience. I feel in my heart, I read a lot of those different things, and I came across that information many times, probably on my path. And this is the part where I would really want people to be gentle with themselves. There's sometimes I'll say that to some of my clients, like if I end up sharing a book with them or some type of information that they might not necessarily have opened their mind to, I said, I just want you to do yourself a favor. And I'm asking you to do the same thing for you, is if you're getting the information now and you're starting to really wrap your mind around it and really getting it. I think sometimes we can read something or whatever, but we just don't necessarily get it yet. But I think the reason why is because you're not meant to fully get it yet. You're meant to be that other part of you that's a little more disconnected, that has some belief systems, because you were supposed to meet Joe, and they were supposed to screw you over, and you were supposed to see it through those eyes, type of a thing. So this is the part where I do say to a lot of my clients, like, not a lot of them, but the odd one, I'll say, listen, I said, just do yourself a favor. When you start reading some of this stuff or opening your mind to some of this stuff, just don't beat yourself up for it. And I said to them, the reason why is because of the fact that you've already taken up so much time by not studying it, right? So do you really want to take up more time beating yourself up because you wish you would have known it sooner? Maybe you weren't supposed to know it sooner. Maybe you really weren't supposed to get it, sooner. So because of the fact that maybe you were supposed to get it now. So just out of love for yourself, I just really encourage you to just know that wherever you're at on your journey, if you're really just more getting it now on that deeper level, that's okay too. And just enjoy as much as you can, because, we can't, we can a little bit change some of the past, but the key element is we're here to grow and move forward with that knowledge and information. So anyway, power. So, I know that I had wanted to mention some things about it, but I just got lost for a second. So let's see where we go. Power. So, power. I know that I had wanted to mention some important things about power. Now I just got totally lost. Well, I guess it'll probably, he's saying a break's coming, but that doesn't necessarily matter because for some reason my brain just went, oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. So they're reminding me. So basically, when you get to a certain point in your journey and you realize that we came here to create, and that actually that in itself is power. And I think the beauty in all of that is, say, I think a lot of the experiences prior to that, where you really come to terms with the fact that we have the potential to make an impact on the things around us, that in itself is a form of power. Where prior to that, it's almost like with maybe some strong religious beliefs, where we kind of think a lot of things are more happening to us, and in some cases they still are. But the beauty, when you start to recognize what power is, you realize that you actually can do something about it, right? So the key element is when you start to take responsibility for some of the things that are happening in your life, it basically just helps you to feel like you have more power in that. So we're getting ready to take a break right now, and for those who are watching, please stay here. Um, so the key element is, when it comes to power, is the fact that you have the power to say yes or no. So that's our free will. We have the free will to be able to be close to our higher power or not, to to have things come in our reality or not. So this is a key element. But one of my spiritual teachers did say something. So one of the things that I do love the Abraham Hicks teachings. I just don't know if I necessarily agree with just only speaking to people, like, when they're happy, like, you know what I mean. I do I enjoy the Abraham Hicks teachings. I love the concept of the vortex and being in the vortex. And I've manifested a lot of wonderful stuff in the vortex. I'm not going to lie to you, but I do believe in my heart, there's some really important things about, with any NDEers, there's a lot about love, right? So a lot of them, when they come back after having a near-death experience, a lot of them are disseminating out, how important it is for us to love one another and to love. And, and in my heart, I believe love doesn't just love you when you're happy. Love loves you all the time, right? So the key element is it really depends on where you're at on your journey, and whether you can handle some different things. But if everyone only talked to each other when they were happy, like, there would be a lot more. I just don't necessarily think that that's necessarily the best way to approach things. And the reason why I'm going in this direction is, I did have another spiritual teacher. These are the one. So it's a group consciousness by the name of Lazarus. There's a gentleman by the name of Jack Purcell that channels him. He's still alive today, so the Lazarus information is still out there. I don't study with the Lazarus more recent stuff as much. I'm not saying that I'm not interested. But the old Lazarus stuff that came into my reality was pretty darn cool. It took me a long time to digest that information at the time, because on the planet itself, it was very dense and the information was pretty advanced. And within it, it was talking about reality creation, the basics, the new age and its future. And I do believe in my heart, it was so many of the things that was shared there is kind of what's. I know they're implying that it could have happened, like in like, I don't, the 90s or whatever. But in my heart, I believe whatever he's saying in it is really kind of conducive to even what's happening right now. But in it, they did actually disseminate out about the fact that, because there are some schools of thought that say, if we create, there are some school of thought that actually think that if we create, we actually could create that person like to hurt us. Oh no, I didn't hurt you. You were the one that created me hurting you. Like he gives an example of that, So, but the key element is that we've actually, from my understanding, it's another underlying law is that we've agreed to have impact while we're here on the planet. So the key element is that when we actually interact with each other, we actually impact each other through our actions, right? So we're not just living in this, because there's some school of thought that actually talk about it that it is an illusion. And on the highest level of truth, it is an illusion, but it's a very, as he even said, solid illusion. He's like, run into a wall and tell me or anyone else that it didn't hurt you. Like, it's pretty solid illusion while we're here in physical form. But one of the agreements was that we would have impact on each other, which means that if you hurt somebody, you actually could hurt them. You know what I mean? You actually did it, right? So, and that if you didn't really mean to, or if you didn't necessarily, you kind of didn't really like the fact that you did it, or feel bad that you did it, or maybe it was years later that you came to terms with the fact that you might have harmed them, that that it might be in your and their best interest that you apologize, because of the fact that that probably did affect that other person. And this is, the way that, we make an impact on each other's lives, right? And that is another way where we have can use our power to uh, change things or make a contribution, or it doesn't necessarily mean you have to come in with the tail between the leg kind of scenario. It's just to realize that, hey, I think I might have messed up that time, and I apologize. I have to be careful with the word "I am" in front of sorry, so that's why I didn't necessarily say that, because at a certain point in my journey, I did come across the information through Unity Church. There was a course that I studied, and it was called the 4T Prosperity Course. And when it was, the way it was designed was actually you would read. So it had a book and it had tapes, and it wanted you to read and listen at the same time, because they were trying to disseminate out the fact that we learn much better that way, that we actually will retain more information if we're actually reading it and hearing it at the same time. And, well, a lot of the things were about some of the things I'm sharing with you today, but they talked about the I am statement. And this is the part where we have to be very careful when we say I am in front of something. Even so, one of the things that was brought up in that course was the I am sorry. And to be honest with you, I used to use that a lot to, and they said, no, you are not a sorry person. So I'm just wanting to bring this to your attention, to just be very careful of the I am statements, because for some reason that is like claiming. You're claiming I am is like your God self. So it's basically, for some reason, the universe responds very quickly when we say I am together. So many of my spiritual teachers actually, later in my journey, when I became like more, maybe advanced with my understanding, excuse me, would I actually also encourage to not necessarily label anyone in particular and yourself. Some of my clients don't necessarily always enjoy that. Some people are kind of attached to some of those aspects of themselves, but the reason why is because in some cases, if it's an illness or a diagnosis of some sort, I think that I feel in my heart it might be beneficial, excuse me, if it helps you to understand yourself a little bit better initially, because it maybe lumps you in a little bit of a category. But if you overly see yourself as that, it can eventually start to restrict you. So that's why even when some of the people that I work with, or some of my friends or whatever, when they say, well, I'm diagnosed with this, or I'm this, I always say to them, I don't necessarily focus on that with that person. I try to see them for who they are than necessarily that label, because of the fact that if I see them with that label or help to support that, it may actually get bigger, like consume more of their life. And that's not necessarily what I feel like the way I'm supposed to be contributing to others is. I might not necessarily say any of that out loud. It's just something that when I've made a decision on how I want to make a contribution to others. So, so now we're going to talk about power in another way that I have experienced it on my journey. I was just getting ready for a break here, so I'm just adjusting to that. So, a break right now for anyone that is listening on audio. And for those who are watching video, please stay right here. So, when I was working at the casino, it ended up that I started to get like kind of question whether, even though I love my job and I got great exercise and I made decent money and met some wonderful people, I was really starting to learn a lot of different things when it came to metaphysics, and I just felt like I was getting to the point where I really questioned if I was making that much of an impact, um, you know, um, and I remember saying to my spiritual teacher, I said, because I love Robin Williams. Robin Williams is one of my favorite comedians at the time, and there's a beautiful one where he talks about the fact about when he got ready to have a child, and he's like, oh my gosh, there's this one part of you that pictures him like maybe being the president one day, and then there's another part of you that kind of makes you wonder if you see him going, do you want fries with that, and truthfully, I kind of felt like my job at the casino as a cocktail server on the gaming floor was a little bit more like, do you want fries with that? Like, it didn't necessarily feel like I was doing anything really, but it definitely wasn't rocket science, but so I remember saying to my spiritual teacher, I said, like, maybe I'm supposed to go somewhere else. And then she said to me, how do you not know you're the only light in that place? And I said, well, I don't know. She said, well, how do you not know you're the only light in that place? And I started to kind of think about it, and I started to look at it, and I started to kind of decided that it doesn't really matter where I work, but what I do when I am in whatever environment that I'm in. So I started to, I added to my daily practice, because that started to get, every time I learned a new modality, like I was a pretty, committed student, I guess is all I could say. I would memorize sometimes like a certain meditation, or if there was a certain type of prayer. But when it came to my daily practice, there was a certain part where I started to set my intention that anything I came in contact with was blessed, and this and that or whatever, and that somehow but I also had learned from my other spiritual teacher that I had no right to impose my light. So this is another part about power. So I remember when I was first got my Reiki, and I'm cocktail server, and I've got my tray, and I'm like enjoying like tapping my customers on their shoulders and thinking I'm sharing light with them, and all that stuff. And I confide in my Reiki master, and she says, you don't have a right to impose your light. And but it just felt so darn good, right? So I decided that I was going to still do it, because it sure felt so good to offer it out, but I was only going to offer it out to anyone who wanted it. Who didn't want it, it would just pass right by them. And then as I kept growing and bringing more into my daily practice, and bringing more of the light beings, and setting my intention. But I started to set my intention that anything I would come in contact with was blessed, and that would be beneficial for myself and anyone, that I interact with. But I didn't necessarily know if it worked. I really didn't necessarily know it worked. I know made me feel better. I also offered it out to anyone who thought of me or who I thought of. But what it did do is it always helped me know when someone I love or someone I knew was going through something, because I would keep thinking about him, because I offered anyone I was thinking of or who thought of me. I would kind of know when they were going through a tough time. I just kept thinking about them. So I'd call them and check on them. And in a lot of cases, I would be correct. They would always say, "How do you always know when to call?" And it was a lot to do with the fact of what my intention was, and the impact that I had chosen to make with the wisdom that I had. And plus, like I say, it made me feel pretty darn good too. So um, there was a certain point in my journey I had committed to A Course in Miracles, and I wasn't necessarily sure if it like that tool like that ever really made an impact on anyone at the time, but it sure made me feel good. And I remember I was waitressing at the casino, and this lady ordered a coffee double double. She said, "I'd like a coffee double double, please." She says, "I love your coffee." And I'm like, okay. Now at the time I wasn't doing sugar, I wasn't whatever. We couldn't drink any of this stuff on the gaming floor. The only thing we could drink on the gaming floor was a glass of water, like a bottle of water. So it ended up, I walked back to the bar. I'm making the coffee double double, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, I must make pretty good coffee double double, like I just not realizing. So I come back to my customer, and she says, "No, you don't understand. I've been coming to this casino since it opened, and I love to drink coffee when I gamble." She said, "The coffee at your casino gives me sores in my mouth." She said, "But not your coffee." So for whatever reason, my intention, and so again, this is power, right? My intention to bless whatever I came in contact with, if it was beneficial for them and myself, it actually impacted that woman's life. So that's how powerful we can be when we become clear and focused. So just wanted to share that with you. I'm also being reminded of a beautiful story from Carolyn Miss. So even when I was driving on the highway, I would kind of see it as that. I just kind of got to the point where I realized anywhere I was where I was meant to share my light. And I'm also sharing this story for sometimes when people wake up, or maybe after they take a modality of some sort, and they really picture that to make a big difference, they have to have a certain type of a title or a label. But I really feel in my heart, like what I mean by that is you actually have to be that all the time, that facilitator all the time. And I really would like to encourage people to realize before you make some major decisions like that, sometimes is to really apply some of those principles that you're learning in the environment that you're in. Because I really feel in my heart, I had some friends that were a little envious of me because I applied a lot of this stuff in an environment like the casino, in an average place where all different kinds of people were. But the key element was by doing that, I had more stuff that I could relate to some of my clients with. You see what I'm trying to say? So sometimes, and plus our light, really, like she said, maybe our light is needed, in those environments. And I do believe in my heart it was a beneficial thing for me to have that experience and grow spiritually in an environment like that. It was sure a wonderful way for me to really, develop my gifts in an environment where it was pretty darn noisy, actually, in some cases, and a lot of people, a lot of different energies, and definitely not all of them were happy. So it went through a pretty interesting adjustment time, but also I met a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. So I'm just encouraging you. So now I'm being reminded again about Carolyn Miss' story. So she ended up sharing. Getting ready for that break coming up here. She ended up sharing, when you're on the highway, right? So because I did a lot I commuted back and forth from Hamilton to Niagara Falls. But the beauty in that was the fact that I had that time in between, sometimes to listen to audiobooks or this and that, whatever. And sometimes it's just to just really, I got to the point where I didn't mind understand what was happening to my thoughts because of the fact that there wasn't as much going on in there as there used to be. But we'll talk about that some other time. So we're just getting ready for, I gotta take a sip here. We're getting ready for a break, but for those who are in audio, but for those who are video, please stay here. So, there's a beautiful story, and I'll never forget this story. So she ends up saying, like, when you're going somewhere and you get stuff in traffic, your natural response is to get frustrated, right? Your natural response is to be frustrated and go, oh my gosh, Meanwhile, we don't know really what's going on up there. There is a potential that there could be a huge car accident, and there could be someone who died. Like, we just don't necessarily know. Really, but we're so wrapped up in getting to our destination that we're not necessarily thinking about that. Anyway, she ended up sharing a story about somebody that had been, in a traffic stuck on the highway, and someone got in an accident, and the person was hovering out of their body, so their spirit was hovering out of their body, and while they were hovering out of their body, out of all the people that were there was only one person. They saw a beam of light coming from the person, like up, and then from the person to them while they were hovering out of their body, and that beam of light that helped them, gave them the strength and courage to get, like, enough energy to get back in their body. So they were getting ready to die, basically. But that one person praying for them, just one, gave them the strength to come back into their body. So while they were hovering outside, they saw the license plate number of the person and they remembered it. And through a sequence of events, they found a way to find that person with that license plate number. And they brought them flowers and thanked them for praying for them. So that's how powerful we are. We are that powerful that we could make an impact on someone's life. Just one person praying for somebody. So now I'm thinking about some of my other teachings, which is Scenario Romans work, and they talk about one positive thought can transform 10,000 negative ones. It's pretty darn good. Eh? So I ended up writing a story just recently. I ended up posting it today, but not everyone might necessarily actually see that. So I'm going to tell you a story about my power in my own journey with my Reiki master. So at a certain point in my journey, I started to work more with the angels, directly with the angels. And one of the real simple tool that I would do when I was at the casino, because I noticed around midnight, because I worked from 6:15 to 2:45 in the morning for many years, so we called it swing shift. And I would have to drive home late at night. And I got up early because I was getting fanatical about working out and all that stuff. So it was active day. My work was pretty active job. And around midnight, I noticed I would start to get tired. And when I got physically tired, from my understanding, when you get physically tired, your aura contracts. And when your aura contracts, sometimes, your thought processes can get a little sloppy too. When you're tired, you don't know when you're tired, right? So it ended up that when I was tired, I noticed that my thought process started to get a little bit more negative. And I was concerned about that because I was getting pretty good at kind of controlling my thoughts, and I was attracting much more better things. I was making better tips. We'll talk about some of that other stuff some other time. So anyway, so I started to surrender my fears to the angels who are with me right now, and I asked for them to be transformed into light and love. So just going to surround you with angels right now and just share this tool with you. I'm willing to surrender my fears to the angels who are with me right now, and I ask for them to be transformed into light and love. And just breathe. Very simple tool. and I would do it and I would feel better. So I'm on a Reiki practice night and I end up sharing it with my Reiki master. She's doing, like, we would do hands-on healing. We're practicing on each other and I'm so excited, and I decide to share with her this tool. And she turns to me and she says, how do you know that they're not dark angels? And I was like, I just, whatever, and she puts her hands on, she turns her back on me. She won't talk to me anymore after that. That was it. So we have the practice night probably about 45 minutes to an hour after. And I couldn't get it out of my head. I just couldn't. I felt like she planted the seed, and now I'm questioning myself and want to talk, and she won't talk to me after. And I ended up, for 3 days, to be honest with you, I kept questioning. I was so kind of depressed. I was wondering if I was, maybe she's right, you know, type of a thing. And then I remember there was just a certain point where I just had this strong epiphany. And I ended up calling her, and I called her, and she answered the phone. She was there. She answered the phone, and I said, I just want to thank you for what you did the other day. And she says, thank you for what? I said, I want to thank you for what you did, because you show me where I give away my power. And she said, "Oh, what do you mean?" I said, because I thought you knew what was better for me than I did. You see, I thought you knew what was better for me than I did. And on the highest level of truth, I had already been calling in high light beings. I had only been calling in the highest light beings anyhow. But for whatever reason, when she said that to me, I had forgotten, because it made me question my own decisions. So even though she was the one that mentioned power to me, she was also the one that made me question, come to terms with the fact of where, and it showed me and taught me where I would give that power away by thinking someone else knew what was better for me than I did. So that's why I'm really trying to encourage you, or anyone on this journey, that to just really start learning to find out what's good for you, and that sometimes it takes time to figure that out, and just be patient enough with yourself and allow that to happen. So I'm trying to think. I know there were some other things about other stories about power. They're reminding me of. I guess that can be power too. So sure, they're reminding me of another story that. Oh, maybe if we have to leave soon. That. Oh no, I think it's fine. So there was a certain point during the pandemic where I had said to my guys, I was very concerned. I was grieving. Um, Actually, it's my brother's birthday today. He passed on at the beginning of lockdown. So, um, just to lose anyone during that period of time, I think it was hard on a lot of us, because we just didn't get that normal human contact, right? So, anyway, I had asked, why I didn't feel compelled to want to do some of the things that people were doing spiritually at the time. And I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I was concerned that maybe, I might disseminate out the wrong information. I really wanted to make sure that and I said, what if I'm wrong? And I was shown a lifetime. I was shown a couple lifetimes where in another lifetime I had followed instruction by God, and I was a warrior. I was a man in that life, and all of my men died in battle with me, and all the people that were related to them, the mothers and the children, they just kind of hated me, because everyone lost their loved ones. Like there was none of us left for the community to even build it, type of a thing. And it helped me realize I did. So with some past life work, you can go in and you can change it, right? You can go in and change it. And I went in and changed it, and I gave my men a choice. I said, listen, we could potentially die here. So I said, it's up to you whether you come. And some came, and they were still patriotic, and some didn't. And we went to a totally different trajectory. So anyway, I have to wrap up right now. So, just remember, that's how powerful we are. So even when we're asking from our higher power, it's just really in your best interest to sometimes ask some extra questions. Just because it's telling you to do something, it might not necessarily hurt for you to ask a little bit more about what the result is going to be in that. Anyway, my name is Ann Kulyk. I choose to be called Rose, and my website is www.theperfectrose.ca. My other website is roseannkulyk.com, and my job is to assist you and grow, and kind of tune in and see a little bit more about what your guides and your higher self is trying to lead you to, and help you to create the things that you truly desire in your life. So I want to thank you for coming to the Soul Mechanics show today, and I look forward to serving you the next time. Lots of love. Bye for now.
This has been The Soul Mechanic Show with Ann Kulyk. Tune in each week for a magical journey with you, supporting your growth and helping you create the life you truly desire. Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.